Here's the thing. I do not want flaky players in my game. I do not want players jumping in, eating up my onboarding time, and then not showing up for the game, not becoming a permanent part of the story, not investing in it. I'm only here to offer my table to serious, committed gamers who want to game, who want to make this a real thing, who take the craft seriously. And let me tell you something right now. I've not yet met an actual flaky player who's willing to... Hello friends, GM Philosopher here. Welcome back to GM Philosophy in the Morning. I have finally done it. I have launched my paid Game Master journey on StartPlaying, and I have succeeded at my first initial goal. It took me 3.5 months, but I filled all 4 of my games consistently with 6 or more players. My 4 first paid games. I started on January 1st, and now it is midway through April, and I have reached my goal. And I'm going to share everything I've learned that's important on this journey with you, so that if it is time for you to start this journey, if you want to become a pro GM who actually gets paid gamers on StartPlaying, and I'm not talking about just randoms, I mean good, high-quality gamers, and you want to keep them in your games, make it successful, make it consistent, make it long-term, not only as maybe a side hustle and extra income, but even moving toward full-time income and actually having paid games that make sense, that are fun with great players, the whole 9 yards, then this is the video for you. I'm going to share all of my deepest, darkest secrets in this book. You're not going to want to miss this. Let's dive right into it. Now, I recently completed and published the GM Philosopher's Paid GM Guidebook for GMs who want to run paid games on StartPlaying. This is not an official StartPlaying guidebook. This is the book I have written over the past several months as I've documented all of the techniques that actually worked in my process. I've had to learn a lot of lessons over the past 3.5 months to make this goal come true. I have had to learn from a lot of mistakes. I had to learn by trial and error. I had to figure out some things when there really wasn't anyone to learn from. And I've compiled everything that succeeded, everything that worked into this book, so you can actually grab this now. Link is in the description. It is available for a low introductory price, guys. We're going to be pulling information from this book for this video. And I'm going to give you everything you need in this video, but if you want a deeper dive, if you actually want to go deep and learn like some of the nitty-gritty stuff, there are over 140 pages of content in this book that are going to help go deeper. So make sure you grab that. Link's in the description. With that being said, let's go ahead on and continue with the process. Step 1. If you want to actually run pro games, paid games on StartPlaying, run D&D or some other TTRPG on StartPlaying, actually make money doing it, you need to ask yourself the first hard question, and this is a hard question that everyone needs to start with. Should you even be a paid GM? Should you even be charging to do this? Now, some people say things like, I don't want money to disrupt my hobby, and I understand this. However, there's also a question to be asked, am I good enough? Do I have enough experience? Am I prepared to run on StartPlaying? I'm going to answer this in a very simple, concise way. I'm going to try to make this as simple as I can make it. Yes, if you do not know how to make running paid games work, then running paid games will probably ruin your hobby, and they'll probably ruin what you love about it, because it can get so stressful. There can be so much pressure, and money can make things feel weird if you do not know how to properly price, if you don't know how to properly conceptualize getting paid to run games, and if you don't understand how to actually make the process smooth enough and easy enough that you're not bogged down by the business to ruin the magic of the creative narrative, actually playing and running the sessions, okay? That's my short answer. It does not have to ruin the hobby. I did go through a season back a few months ago where it did threaten to ruin the hobby for me, but it was because I didn't learn a lot of the most important business lessons and lessons about how to run a functional pro game, because it is different than running games for your friends and family. And in my book, when I do lay out way deeper concepts on this, but here's the short answer to the second question. Are you ready to run paid games? Here are the questions to ask yourself. Are you pretty comfortable and competent running games? Have you run enough free games that you are very confident in your ability to do it? You're confident in your prep. You're confident gathering a group of strangers around the table and actually running them through an adventure. And you feel like not only are you ready and adequate to solve conflicts, arise to challenges, improvise when needed, utilize your prep and make it smooth and seamless, but also you are good with even challenges. Even if you run for challenging players, you're going to be like, no, I got this. I'm not worried. These players can throw whatever they want at me. I'm going to make it sing. It's going to be chef's kiss. Now, I'm not saying you have to be perfect. I'm not saying that you have to be incredible or world-class. This is more about a confidence and knowing yourself thing. But here's the bottom line. If you feel confident enough in yourself and your own abilities that you could do this, And you could feel confident about it. And you could walk into that room saying to yourself, oh yeah, there's going to be no problem. And you have enough experience that you know you can do that and back it up, then you're probably ready to run pro games. And here's the big thing that a lot of people don't understand. You don't need to have been running games for years. I've been running games for over 24 years at this point. But I don't need all that experience to run successful pro games. What you do need is just enough experience to get to that point in your mind with your confidence level. If you can get there, then you're ready, my friend. Like, you don't even have to be a rules lawyer. You don't have to be a massive brain computer to like know all the lore and everything. You don't need to do all that. But what you do need to be able to do is handle a party, sometimes a challenging party, and all of the things that come with that. And if you can actually do that, then my friend, you are ready to launch your pro game career. Let's just put it that way. Point number 2. Your first goal is not money, it is legitimacy. A lot of paid GMs, pro GMs, or should I say aspiring pro GMs, people who kind of get frustrated, they struggle to fill games, they struggle to get players to sign up and stay. They are not understanding that this is step 2 and is really important. I'm going to read you a little blurb from my book about this. If you are serious about becoming a paid GM, I want to offer you a mindset shift that will save you a lot of frustration. Secret fact, it took me almost a month to learn this lesson on my own. Your first goal is not money. It is legitimacy. That may sound strange at first, especially if one of the reasons you are exploring paid GMing is because you genuinely need extra income. There's nothing wrong with that. Most of us could use more income. Most of us would love for our effort, creativity, and time to produce something tangible in return. But if money becomes the first thing in your mind, it can distort the whole beginning of the journey. Because when you lead with money, you start asking the wrong questions. Let me share these with you. How fast can I get people in the door? How quickly can I fill seats? What should I say to convince people to buy into my games? How do I avoid losing players? How do I get this to work right now? If any of these questions sound familiar, then you're probably stuck in something that I call a scarcity mindset about running pro games. And this is the real takeaway from this. When we are running pro games, we are running for serious gamers. These are gamers who are willing to bypass the friends and family thing. Maybe they're on a busy schedule. They're willing to invest money into this hobby because it is so important to them. And they want a professional, serious experience. But what are they really looking for? See, sometimes when you think about running a pro game, you're thinking about the money. But this is all wrong to think about the money first. You do have to price your games right, which is why there's a whole chapter in my book about pricing games. And there's even a worksheet that I've included with the book about how to conceptualize price and how to set your own prices. With that being said, a lot of pro GMs who are struggling with their games or are struggling with the idea of this don't understand that that is a distant conversation, a distant thought to what should be on your mind in step 2, which is build legitimacy, but build it inside of yourself. And I call this an abundance mindset when it comes to running pro games. What is the most important thing about a D&D game or any TTRPG game that you might start playing? What is the most important thing? The most important thing is the quality of the experience. There is nothing more important than this. It is the initial glue that keeps the group together. It is the initial value proposition being offered for the whole pro games setup. And it is the thing that is going to keep great gamers at your table. Therefore, it must be the most important thing, hence legitimacy. But legitimacy doesn't come by getting paid. Legitimacy comes by delivering that experience as the game master. And so what I think to myself is the story, the co-creative intellectual art of actually running the game session. And it is play, but I'm going to be honest with you. I don't even like this term playing D&D. I'm not against it, but to be honest, I call it creating together, creating story together, running the session together. Because what we're really doing is we are practicing a creative art form where we are creating a narrative, a shared story held within our collective minds at the table. And we are turning this into a real ephemeral art experience. And that is a whole different kind of creative mindset. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think it gets the credit it usually deserves. But really ambitious, really serious TTRPG gamers understand this, and they understand that that art is valuable. And that's what they're looking for. They want the experience of creating that art in real time. They want it to matter. They want it to feel seamless. They want it to stir emotion and actually create emotional buy-in, right? I call this emotional resonance, where players actually care about the game. If you want to actually succeed at running pro games, then that is actually what you're going to want to focus on first. Because if you create this, and when I say this, I mean a legitimate, high-value game experience, the money is going to follow, friends. So the first thing is focus on legitimacy and value, and the money will follow. Now, I have another book that I have written back in 2025 that discusses emotional resonance. You can grab this, link is in the description. It's my whole thesis on this, 50 pages compiled from 24 years of running games. In the ideal world, you would grab both of these books that I've talked about this far and add them to your library because you're going to need them if you do not deeply understand these concepts. But that's what this whole step is about, understanding that legitimacy must come before money. If you are ready to do this and have an abundant mindset about it, this leads us to point number 3. Now, step 3, I'm going to include a couple different things in this because this is really important stuff. Number 1 is building your profile. And number 2 is actually building your game listing. And then number 3 is formulating your game listing so that it actually converts possible interest and gets attention and then converts that into bookings. Now, this is a very long and involved process. In my book, I dedicate 3 whole chapters to this because there's actually a lot of marketing knowledge contained within the area of these 3 chapters of this whole topic and concept that a lot of pro GMs just simply don't know. I come from a marketing background. I've been a professional digital marketer since 2009. So this part of it for me, while it did take a bit of troubleshooting, was maybe one of the easiest parts for me. But I also have literally decades of experience in the game. And thus, transcribing this experience into the book was probably one of the biggest value adds because it's really important to understand the basics of marketing, converting sales, and then building a profile that attracts gamers instead of repelling them. When I browse StartPlaying listings, it's amazing how many game listings just don't stand out and unfortunately will probably never get clicks and never get players. And the reason isn't because the games are bad. It isn't because they're not a good GM. It's not because their campaign concept isn't awesome. Let me tell you a secret. The secret is most games posted on StartPlaying will not get players because the GM who designed the listing, put it on StartPlaying, didn't understand basic marketing principles of getting noticed and drawing attention to your game. This is so crazy important. And if I was going to summarize it really quickly, I mean, I could make this a 20-hour video if I really break this down. And I really do break it down in my book. But if I was going to just give you the very, very basic things, let me tell you this. Your profile is what gives you an air of legitimacy from the marketing end. So in other words, when they look at your profile, you basically want to look like someone who cares, someone who's legitimate, someone who is safe to try out. They want, when they look at your profile, to think, oh, this is a GM who cares about the game. They're going to try really hard. It's probably going to be a good experience. That's what you want them to think. But they're not ever going to even see your profile if they don't click on your listing. What does your listing need to do? Number 1, it needs to stand out. It really needs to stand out amongst the 50 to 60 other options they have at their time frame. Friend, you may have 150 other games competing with you for the same area span of time. Like on a Saturday afternoon, there might be 150 plus games competing with yours, all of them available at a click. If yours does not stand out, you are not going to get players. And you may have the best game ever, but the listing actually matters. This is why the title matters, the image matters. It matters how you formulate your listing because once they click on your listing, then you have to convert them into a player because some listings will get clicked on and then they get clicked away from. That's not going to help you either. Getting clicked is the first step. But if you want to actually keep them in, you need a really great hook and you need to arrange your game listing information in such a way that it's going to tell them the most important information first. It's going to categorize the information so that they can scan it and understand what your game is about because clarity is so important. I want you to really think through this. I want you to think whenever you're designing your game listing, I want you to think, is this title going to actually accurately convey the game? Is it going to grab attention? Is my image going to grab attention? Is there something about my image that's going to make it bold, make it stand out? And then when they click on the listing, am I actually going to hook them with the little 2-sentence hook I get to put in there on my StartPlaying profile? Or am I just, BSing in that space? You need to hook them, friend. You need to really compel them, make them interested emotionally in your game. So you got to really get their attention, make them curious, make them think, oh, I could see myself playing in that game. And then your game listing should provide the information categorized, easily accessible, easy to scan. You need to think about okay, suppose they're only going to glance at it for 10 seconds. Is your listing going to keep and hold their attention, right? If not, then your listing's probably going to get clicked away from, and you're probably not going to bring people in, the kind of gamers you want to bring in. Now, there is a question of how should you arrange the information. I'll kind of give you my baseline example. You start with the title, obviously. Then is going to come your hook, right? But then you want to describe what your game is. Then you want to describe the tone of your game. Then you want to describe who it is for, what kind of gamers it'll appeal to. Then you want to describe the commitment expectations, i.e. the length of the game, the length of the sessions, what the commitment is. And then finally, basic practical details, right? Now, when you describe what your game is, this is going to go under the title, under the hook. A lot of gamers they flood the whole game listing with this, but they don't accurately do a good job of making that concise and scannable. And then they don't do a good job of also then putting in the tone of the game, who it is for. When you're selling a game on StartPlaying, you're not just selling a game like listing. You're not just selling your game. It may feel that way, but what you're really selling is an experience. What you're really selling is the idea of a fantasy. And if you don't properly cultivate that and get that inspiration flowing just from them reading it, you're going to fall flat. You're going to miss out on clicks. You're going to miss out on conversions. And then before you know it, your game is going to be sitting with no players for 4 months while a bunch of other games around you start filling up and they're having fun and they're making money and they're crushing it. So case in point, make sure you get your marketing straight. Make sure your listing stands out. Make sure it's accurate. Make sure it's clear who it's for and what it is. This is going to help you big time for those clicks and then those conversions into sales. Now, I'm actually starting a private group in my Discord, which if you want to join the GM Philosophy Discord, anyone can join that. Link's in the description. We're over 600 Game Masters strong right now. We got all kinds of awesome stuff going on in there. However, I am starting a private group, literally starting it today. It's going to be very limited. I'm only letting 6 people into it. There is going to be a cost associated with it. I'm not listing the cost right here because the cost may change when I start getting into it, start understanding like exactly how it looks. This is brand new. This is a guild, a pro Game Masters guild. And I'm going to be starting it in a private channel on my Discord. If you would like my help literally every week, meeting with you and guiding you on this process of starting your paid games, running your paid games, getting paid for them, and even marketing them on social media and stuff like that. Like if you are interested in actually going hard in the paint and doing it legit, especially if you want to make it like an adequate side hustle or maybe even full-time, that is exactly what I am doing. I do not know that I see anyone on YouTube kind of going as hard as me in the sense of like running the pro games and then also documenting it and also marketing on social media, because more than 30% of my players at this point come through my YouTube. So I get a lot of traction through my social media. If you're interested in actually building this business, the only way you could join this group with me, and we can meet for free. Like there's no cost associated with this. If you're interested, we can meet and talk about it. You can learn more. But here's what you have to do. You have to join my Discord. You have to find me, the GM Philosopher, in my Discord. And you have to private message me, hey, I want to be a part of the guild. If you go through all those steps, I will message you back and I will set up a one-on-one meeting with you unless I get absolutely flooded, in which case you better be one of the few that seem interesting to me in the beginning, because I don't know how many responses I'm going to get to this. Tell me what your plan is, why you want to run paid games, what your experience is, basically pitch it to me. This is not going to be something that I'm going to do with everyone. I'm only going to go down this road and I'm going to fill this group with 6 people that I think will make amazing pro GMs. And I'm literally going to help guide them on the path. If you want to be a part of this group or you want to take a shot at it, like have a face-to-face with me and interview for this and see if I think you have what it takes, then join my Discord, find me and message me a message, pitch it to me. And then if I think you got the tenacity, if I think you've got the vision, if I think you've got the creativity and the passion to make it, then I will invite you into this group and when we will talk further about this. So if you're interested in that, join the GM Philosophy Discord. Link is in the description. But now let's move to point number 4. Let's talk about how to price your game. Now, my games all filled up at the $20 price point. I have interviewed game masters who are filling up games at $30. I have seen lots of games in StartPlaying that are priced higher than that. I have also talked to many pro GMs who struggle to fill their games even at $5 or $10. Here's something that you need to understand about pricing. There's a point to where you do have to prove yourself that you're worth the price. You can manage this through a really awesome listing. You can also manage this by having really great either audience through social media, so you can like market really well, or you can do this by gathering like a bunch of reviews and getting street cred on StartPlaying. The best way to make the most money at your games is to actually be an amazing GM who has demonstrated that you know what to do and that you can fill your games and that your players love your games, because that demonstrates the quality. And once you've demonstrated the quality, if you market through social media and you actually get enough eyeballs on your product, you should have no problem starting out pricing at about $20. And to be honest, on StartPlaying itself, you could maybe go up to $30, $35. But let me tell you something. StartPlaying is brutal at the higher price levels because it's so competitive. Now, if you, in the future, you want to charge more than $30 per person, I'm going to be honest with you, StartPlaying is going to get rough at those higher levels. The best way to get to those higher levels is to build a following on social media, leverage that to market your games, and then use a different platform for paid games, maybe even a private platform where you just have players pay you directly and you run the games. But StartPlaying is also awesome because it is a marketing platform too. A lot of people can discover your games. About 70% of my current game population came to me through StartPlaying. That's amazing. With that being said, my games are priced a bit at the lower point, $20 per player per session. Now, I do have 6 or 7 players per game, but even then, the economics are a little bit rough. So basically what I'm saying is this: you need to think about your economics. I don't need to make a full-time living on StartPlaying because I also do YouTube and I sell products online, hence my books. If you are wanting to go all in on the pro games, there's a whole nother level to that where you want to master that and you want to try to get that price per player as high as possible so that you can still fill your tables at that level. That requires an insane amount of value, demonstrating your value, having great reviews, having great feedback, and you're going to need big traction and a big audience, or you're going to need to be a part of some company that's helping you do that, okay? But if you want to make $20, $25, even $30 per game on StartPlaying, you can do that. And using the methods I've outlined in this video, you can get to that point. But I'm just giving you an accurate representation. You may want to launch your first game at $10 or $15. And then once you get really good at it and you're like, oh, I can crush this, you may want to launch more games at like 20, 25, or 30. But let me give you a little word of warning. Don't launch a bunch of games at $10 or $15 because the economics don't really pan out over time. That's a little cheap. And honestly, at that price point, you're probably going to end up getting into a position where you're like, man, I'm just putting all this work in. Like if you're a really good GM and you're actually doing a great job, you're going to think to yourself, I'm worth more than this. And this is going to lower your passion for it. This kind of goes back to what I said before is, there are some lessons I learned about not ruining your hobby with the money. Not getting paid enough at the hobby you're amazing at when you monetize it is a great way to ruin the hobby for yourself. So don't start more than one game below $20 to start with. Just start one game, fill it, get rolling, demonstrate you have the ability to do this, get it to the point where your players are saying things like, you could be charging way more, right? Or you get some feedback like that, and then you're going to know, okay, we're probably ready to launch more games and I can do them at a higher price point. The next part of this that's crucial to nail is onboarding. A lot can go wrong between players signing up for your game and actually getting into the first session. A lot can go wrong. It took me about 2 months to figure this out, and I'm going to give you the highlights. Now, this involves not only onboarding them personally into your game, and I'm going to explain what that means in a minute, but also character creation and stuff like that. Now, here's the mistake I started making when I first started. My onboarding process, I experimented a lot. I did a lot of trial and error with this. And honestly, I had a lot of player churn. And about probably 65% of this player churn, I have later learned was due to problems with my onboarding process. Player churn is when players join your game and then they very quickly quit, either before the first session, during the first session, or after 1 or 2 sessions. Now, some player churn is going to happen. I do go deeper into this in my book, but you can eliminate a lot of it with a really, really good onboarding process. So I'm just going to tell you my straightforward onboarding process. Number one, once a player signs up for my games on StartPlaying, I message them and I say, hey, welcome to the campaign. I'm so happy to have you. I want to schedule a one-on-one meeting with you through Discord because I have private Discords. All my games are hosted in Discord. I have private game chats for each one of my games. I say, I would love to get on a phone call with you before the next session. Before you play a session, I want to get to know you a little bit. Let's chat about your character idea. I want to catch you up on the campaign. Let's go, right? Now, this is going to be very time consuming, but I have learned that this is the best way to do it. And you're going to learn why in a moment. So first, I get them to schedule a time with me and we jump on a voice chat call. This might take 20 minutes. This might take an hour. But in this call, goal number one is that I just want to get to know them. I just want to learn about them as a person. I want to become friends a little bit, build a little bit of glue with them. This has helped my onboarding process so much. So I'll ask them, hey, what's your name? My name is Josh. It's great to meet you. Tell me about your experience. How many games have you played? Have you ever run any games? What brings you to start playing? Blah, blah, blah. I just want to get to know them. We talk a little bit. We joke around about TTRPGs in general. And I just try to get to know them, see if I like them as a person, and try to show them who I am. Generally, we have a great conversation. And then that kind of leads into, all right, let me tell you about this campaign. Now, I do have mechanisms for bringing players quick start into my campaigns. I'm not going to go over that in depth right here, but I use a mechanism called the convergence where players can quickly jump in and just learn the lore as they go if they don't want a big lore dump. but I do have a big document that I keep updated with kind of the most important current world lore in my games. And then I will say, if you want to lore dump, I will warn you, it'll take us about 20 minutes to get through it, but I have a document for you and I can share it with you if you want to create a character using like backstory in the world. Now, a lot of gamers do choose this route. They want to hear the lore. They want to see my history document. And so I'll send it to them and we'll go through that lore with them. And then basically as I go through this lore with them, they'll learn about the history of the world. They'll learn about what I have going on in the game. They'll learn about recent like big political developments. Like it's not like a bunch of stuff. It's probably, a document that takes me about 15, 20 minutes to like read and then kind of explain a bit. And then when we get done with that, I'll show them like a world map. Actually, as we're explaining it, I'll show them the world map so that they can kind of see what I'm talking about. I'll like highlight the places. I fire up my Owlbear Rodeo, invite them into a session. We run this. And then I say to them, with that being said, what is your character idea? What kind of ideas do you have for characters? And so we'll talk about that and I'll let them, bounce that off of me. Sometimes we'll bounce around story ideas, background ideas. We just spend good quality time on this. Okay. Now, after this step, what I do is I invite them. I say, hey, before you pay for a session, before you jump into an actual session as a player, I would like to invite you to listen in as a spectator. It's not going to cost you anything. We can, skip your first game session so that you can just jump in and listen. And here's why I do this. I don't want the pressure of a player jumping in and then not liking the group, but then feeling like, oh my God, I'm paying for this. And then they might get frustrated by that. I have had this happen in the past. It's true that some groups are not for certain players. I have had players jump in and listen to multiple groups because I'll invite this player to listen in on a bunch of my sessions. I'll say, hey, you want to spectate some of my sessions? They'll not only spectate the one that they're going to join, but they'll also spectate some of the ones that they're not even planning on joining just to see if there's a better fit for them at a time frame that works. And the reason I do this is kind of like two big reasons. Number one, I want to make sure they get matched with the right party. Number two, here's the thing. I do not want flaky players in my game. I do not want players jumping in, eating up my onboarding time, and then not showing up for the game, not becoming a permanent part of the story, not investing in it. I'm only here to offer my table to serious, committed gamers who want to game, who want to make this a real thing, who take the craft seriously. And let me tell you something right now. I've not yet met an actual flaky player who's willing to invest time in spectating games. Never. There are players who just jump in to start playing games and they just kind of like want to get into a game and they like the idea, but their clicking finger gets a little faster than their follow through, if you know what I'm saying. I do not want those kind of players in my games. This process also helps me to vet players because I love when I see players jump in, put time and effort into the onboarding process, and then they actually spectate games and they make an informed choice about what they want to do. This always leads to longer term players who are more committed to the game. And I really love this approach. So that is what my current onboarding process looks like. By the time they jump into the first game, we have their character already made. We make sure they have all the items they're supposed to have. We make sure their starting equipment is right. And then they also usually kind of know the other personalities at least a little bit, and they can jump in. I also give them a custom story part. Like I give them an element to where they are tied into the story in their own personal, unique way. This also really prevents churn and it makes players feel more included and more excited about the game. When they get tied into the story like this, generally it is just a way better experience. So I always make sure to do this. If you onboard your players like this and you actually get them into the first session playing after going through that process, it does feel like a lot. It's going to cost you time. There's no doubt about it. But the dividends you'll get from onboarding a player like this are going to be huge. Some players might be playing with you for a year or more. This little sacrifice of a few hours of your time to onboard them properly is not too much, but it is important that we conceptualize this whole thing. We only want committed hardcore gamers in our groups. If you are trying to like sell to those flaky players or you're afraid of players thinking that's too much, this process isn't really going to probably work. It's going to break down for you. I would always recommend having that mindset of wanting to have a high quality table of high quality gamers and then being super willing that people are going to get turned away by a more personal onboarding process. Do not be afraid of that. When I stopped being afraid of that, my games got way, way better. Now, there are more steps to this. We could talk about how to run a great game. We could talk about how to keep players engaged. There are a lot of steps you can take to make your games stick for longer and longer, keeping each player engaged and keeping players on a longer term basis, which is obviously the goal. The very best pro games, or any games for that matter, is when a GM gets a great idea, they gather a great group of players, and this GM and these players play for a very long time, telling amazing stories of the characters and creating this amazing, incredible intellectual art in a narrative form at the game table. This is obviously what we all want to experience. And there is more to it. However, if you follow the steps I've outlined in this video, you will get your Start Playing Games career started. You can get your pro games listed, you can get them started, and you can start bringing on players and then working through getting better at running the experience. But getting players in the door and onboarded is a huge first step. If you can master that, then friend, you can really make the rest of this work. So I hope that this video has been helpful. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode of GM Philosophy in the Morning. Empowering game masters to run better games is the goal. Roll some D100s for me at your next game, friends, and I'll see you on the next one.